All right, everyone. Good evening, all. My name is Nick Hurley. I am the president of the Highlandtown Community Association, joined by Vanessa Freund, vice president, and many of our board members. Delighted to see so many of you in the meeting tonight. What I'd like to do is give you a quick rundown of the agenda for this evening. Hey, Officer Rivera, good to see you. And then we'll dive right in. All right, so at the conclusion of this agenda update, we are going to do board updates. So Mike Dorsey, Vanessa, Brian Sweeney, and Mark Parker all have updates to do. We are going to briefly recognize some of the great work some folks have done recently for the HCA that we're really proud of. We're going to talk briefly about the coming need for a strategic plan for the HCA. We're going to talk about some website updates. We've got a couple of great folks from Baltimore's Mayor's Office of Homeless Services with us tonight. And I'm going to introduce them and give them a chance to talk briefly about what they do and then answer any questions you all might have. And then we've got two different groups of invited guests. We've got Molly and Eli. And then we've got the Zero Waste Coalition, Tasia and Stephanie. So pretty full agenda. My guess is we'll run till 8:15. And if you need to pop out or have any questions you want to bring into the chat, I'll try and work whatever you say into the meeting. Otherwise, I think we're going to dive into board updates. To begin, Vanessa, do you want to lead us off?
Yes. So updates on cafe lights. We have done reimbursement for $600 that has just gone out. And we have had a steady stream of applications. And we have allotted and approved about $3,200 of the BG&E grant money that we have. So it's moving along pretty well. It's pretty exciting. And that's the only update I have about, Brian Sweeney, just so everybody knows, did apply for a grant, a cafe light grant, and we followed the process. If anybody has any questions or concerns, we have the documentation, but we of course follow the process that we set in place. So, but that's all I have.
Outstanding. Thanks a bunch, Vanessa.
You're welcome.
Let's see, check that out. Next, Mike Dorsey, as treasurer, would you like to talk about finance updates?
Yeah, do you want me to screen share with the actual report?
Yeah, that would be great. Allow me to make you a co-host.
Thank you.
Done.
Okay, everyone see my screen? The bevy of numbers there. All right. So this is basically our format for what our annual reporting cycle is it's split into two different main categories: our income and our expenses. And then we compare what the income was across the year, seen here in 2011, to our categorized expenses, seen here in 2030, and then 032 shows the net. I did add, this is not generally part of the report, but just to give a context, we started the year at 17,368. We ended the year at 14,319. So we spent a little bit more than we brought in. We brought in only two major grants, one from Franz Marek and another from BG&E. We did also get a grant from the Baltimore Community Foundation, but it didn't hit our bank account until January. So it's not seen here, although we did start spending some of that grant because we had the grant agreement in place before we actually had the physical dollars. And the reason that we did that was primarily that we needed to get a certain amount of the projects done for the garden prior to the freeze in the winter. And then so we've double coded our expenses down here. Generally speaking, things like Basement Bar Tour and Wine Festival are a lot more populated. But in this year, it was really the community garden that hit a lot of those big pieces. And then as I went up here on line 12 to talk through exactly where they went, although it's also pretty much double categorized because it's right here as well. Like we spent a certain amount of getting infrastructure in place so that we could have, virtual Zoom meetings, et cetera. And then small donations to Southeast CDC for the Corona mural, which we're very happy about and excited with, and to Breath of God for some COVID emergency relief services. So that's the majority of our expenditures across the year. It's a lot lighter than it normally is, but we've worked on some important projects there, and we also, because of our COVID restriction, we don't have our main income drivers, so it was harder to really justify wanting to spend a whole lot.
Mike, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to cut you off there because these documents will be posted on our website for everyone's inspection. And I know you've got other exciting things to talk about, but I'm really grateful for you getting that work done and getting it ready so we can post it to the website for the community to review. Well done.
All right. Other update, can everyone see a completely different screen?
It's still showing the Excel sheet.
All right, I gotta do something different. Hold on. Let me try this. Now we see something different?
Well done,
Yep.
yes.
All right, so we called it the communicative sculpture because sign, I think somebody said, might set off some alarm somewhere in a potential permit world. Anyway, this is a tale of mud, masonry, and metal. All the pictures that you see here were pictures that were taken on site. That definitely was the mud that we worked in to get this done. And big thanks, by the way, to Halsey Frost Architectural for just pushing this along, and all the volunteers that were part of it. It was a multi-month process. And from a funding side, also great thanks to Southeast CDC for helping us out. It was a multi-year process when you look at it from that perspective. This is a reasonable before shot right around the time when we had our 50-ton crane taking down the platform that was there. And then you'll see over here where the parking cone is, that's where we started building our sign. And so we dug down deep into there to dig a 4.5-foot trench. And then the very next day, it rained like crazy and it flooded all the way up to the top. So what we had to do was start draining the hole with the sub pump that would occasionally fry out because the thermal fuse would blow. It's hard to see where the water line is, but it's pretty high up there. And this is where it also froze. So what we did was we, undid all the water. We then crushed rock that was left in the garden from when the deconstruction process happened and laid a concrete floor or a crushed rock floor after we dug all the muck out. Then bent the rebar, dropped the rebar frame in. And thank you to Dominic Bertucci's for donating the use of those trailers and giving us a discount on the concrete all day, $300 in concrete for 3 yards, 3 cubic yards. It's a pretty good price. And so that's us. And the two of the guys that you see there on the top, Gage and Monty, are from a workforce development program that I run at a nonprofit that is part of South and Southwest Baltimore. But this was just such a great project. We could not have them on board, and they were excited at every turn. This is what it looked like when we poured the concrete base for the footer itself. Had to let that cure for a while. Then we put the form that was built by the illustrious and amazing garden team, both Curley's and Brian Sweeney and myself, so that we could expand it out and put the concrete in there to create the wall. That was another, so the first pour was 1 yard of concrete. This pour was 2. And look, there's Andy Dahl helping us out as we're getting it in there. And then, put the lime in the coconut. Had to do 2 pours and get it in there to move it around and make sure it fit the form really well. let it cure, and we had to let it cure for actually 2 months. And you'd be surprised what green concrete, how easy it is to not hold its former structure and how long it really takes to cure. I had, just as another example, did a sidewalk job and someone wrote a profanity in there. And so a week later, I came back with a cup of water and a rock, and I scratched out in the mush within 10 minutes. So putting the weight of the sculpture that you'll see next on top of this, it really did need that long to cure, especially in the winter. And so this is time. This is the sign. This is Halsey Frost the Magnificent, who built this over a long period and stored it in his shop while we had to wait through the winter for its cure. There it is being hoisted on. And here it is again with Gage and Monty, my 2 trusted sidekicks, put on top of there on the wall itself. And Halsey and his second in command also taking a great picture behind it. And then here's the final picture that's glorious. Thank you, Andy Dahl, for the picture. And thank you, Gage, for photobombing it, which I didn't even realize until much later. So anyway, it was a great project. We were really excited to do it. Great to have some young men helping out and giving their labor to it, which they were paid for. And altogether, it's really exciting, and I think it's a great monument and declaration to what the garden stands for and what it will be as we now have this open space. I can't tell you the number of people as we were prepping the site after the platform had come down. People were like, "What is this place? What are you doing here?" And like, great, now I can be very loudly and proudly declared of what our intentions are and our welcoming to the diversity that is Highlandtown. Finn.
Outstanding, Mike. Great job. You should be really proud of your work on that project.
I am.
Very well done. Are you okay ending screen sharing, or do you want to leave that up for a while?
No, I mean, I don't care. I'm done. There's no more slides. This can be, people can look at this as long as they want. I don't know if anyone has any questions or.
Yeah, let's end screen sharing and take any questions from the floor before we move on with the agenda.
Sounds good.
So we've got a question in chat. Can you talk a bit about how that space is going to be used?
Yep. So the whole purpose of the Conklin Street Garden is really to be a joint asset. Even though we do have Patterson Park on our borders, and from the deepest parts, still less than a mile away, there's actually not a lot of intermittent or little green spaces in between. And there's a lot of people that need to access some of those pockets to just be outdoors and enjoy the community in general. And so we really wanted to open this up to the community, not just to the gardeners, but to interested community members that want to be out there and just enjoy the space and make it a place where we're all congregating and coming together. Historically, we spent a lot of time using it as a host site for the basement bar tour. A lot of people came back every year and saw the improvements we made. We're very impressed. And so now as we have a sort of a bigger leap forward, I'm hoping that some of those conversations, especially with community members, can help inform them that if you want to have your kid's birthday party here or graduation celebration or just a fun Sunday with the in-laws, just ask us and we'll make sure that it's open and we'll do our best to really keep it going. Also, some of the celebrations or the musical performances that were done, or one, I guess, with the Creative Alliance was really encouraging to see all the family members out there dancing and listening to music and enjoying the space and wandering back and forth with where the gardens were. So I think having more instances like that is really what we're striving for.
Outstanding. Great answer. Thanks for that, Mike. Any other questions from the floor for Mike regarding the garden sign installation or other questions before we move on with the agenda? Excellent. Let's move on. Thanks again, Mike.
Yep.
Brian, do you want to share a brief update about dumping?
Sure. So many of you may have seen Zeke Cohen's office, District 1 City Councilman, has posted a number of things about the trash initiative that he and other members of our city council have taken on, and they are to be applauded. This effort to deal with dumping and illegal dumping and trash disposal and all these other things has been a huge problem for not just our neighborhood, but citywide for quite some time. So there's a couple of things that they're doing. I don't know if anybody from Zeke's office is on the call here, but maybe they can step in and clarify later.
Juan is
Um,
actually.
Juan is here?
Yes.
Oh, so he is. Okay. So Zeke and the other city council members have worked to raise the fine. I think it's gone to $1,000 from $500 for illegal dumping, which should be a significant deterrent. The other thing that they are working on, and this is a work in progress, is to make it easier for these small haulers, the guys who are hired by, we've got a lot of landlords around the city who own 1 and 2, 3 or 4 houses. And, as they're doing construction or they have people move out or whatnot, they have a lot of trash to get rid of. And there's a lot of small haulers around the city who do a lot of work for these guys. And our city has not made it easy for these guys to do the right thing. So it's often been easier for them to do the wrong thing and find a dark alley and, to dump what they've got to dump, and they still get paid for it. So the initiative is to have, to make it easier for small commercial haulers to do dumping at the drop-off centers like Sisson Street, and there's one close to us on Moravia Avenue, or just off of it. I forget what it's called, but these places are generally open for residents and not for commercial dumpers. And the intention is to make it easier for people to do the right thing and to raise the penalty for them when they do the wrong thing. There is, however, a third component to this, in my view, that needs to be addressed. And I don't know who here has got a relationship with Councilman Cohen or with other people on the city council, but if we can't determine who is doing the dumping, we can't levy the fine that is the deterrent. So that's the big third part of it, is to have our public works department and our housing people and the other people who do these inspections really step into a program to identify who the dumpers are, so that they can be held to account. And, frankly, I'm not interested in cracking down on small business people who are just trying to make a living. We want to make it easy for them to do the right thing. We're going to increase the penalties for them to do the wrong thing. And we want to be able to identify them so we can redirect them and their business opportunities, so that they can do the right thing. So it's a work in progress. But Councilman Cohen and the other members of the city council are really stepping into this. So please thank them when you see them, and please feel free to editorialize about how are we going to know who these people are. So that's what I've got. Thank you.
Outstanding, Brian. Well done, and thank you. Next, Mark Parker, updates for the group.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. All right. So I serve as pastor at Breath of God Lutheran Church at the corner of Pratt and Clinton Street, as well as on your board. And just 2 updates from there. Many of you all have been involved in or been aware of the pandemic-related feeding efforts that we've been doing there since last March. So just a huge thanks to the HCA. As Brian mentioned before, HCA was one of the initial funders to really help us get going in the springtime. And many of you all have volunteered. So we're really grateful for that. Right now we serve about 175 families on Thursdays who walk up to the church and get a box of produce, a bag of groceries, and prepared meals for kids and for adults. And then Saturdays we do deliveries to 100 families across Southeast Baltimore of about 65 pounds of produce and groceries to them. That's been going on in that form since June. It's going to, the Saturday deliveries are going to wrap up here on April 3rd. On this one, just because resources are both city program resources as well as some of the financial, like some of the grants. The delivery program costs about $5,500 a weekend, which is just, it's just a ton of money and way bigger than we normally operate with. So as those grants have kind of dried up and all the rest, we'll be shifting away from Saturdays. We'll keep doing Thursdays through the end of the school year, pretty much as they currently exist. And then in the summertime, hope to transition back to a kind of a permanent, sustainable Saturday operation that would involve some groceries, produce through the Maryland Food Bank, and probably some prepared meals too. So as we get closer to June, I'll let you know about that and also how to be involved and support it. The other thing that I want to mention today is one of our programs is the Highlandtown Preschool, which serves 34 3 and 4 year old students there in our building, which is right across from Highlandtown Elementary Middle School number 215. And we've been reopened for in-person stuff since July, and that's been really good and serving more students. So if you know any 3 and 4 year olds that are looking for a place to be this summer or starting in the fall, I'd be glad to hear from you. But in particular, our church has purchased one and is trying to purchase a second property adjacent to our building. There was a fire right before Thanksgiving that rendered 3 houses on South Clinton Street, the 100 block of South Clinton Street, uninhabitable, directly next to our property. And so the 2 closest to us one was already vacant and then one became available for sale. So we purchased the one closest to us. That'll be turned into classrooms for 2-year-old students. We hope to start to open for 2-year-olds in January. And then the second building we're hoping to use in the short term for staff housing. We have student pastors who come to work with us for a year at a time. And so it's just good to be able to have a space for them and their families. And then longer term, as things in Washington kind of get more settled, we'll be looking closely at refugee resettlement and being able to have that space available to welcome refugee families from around the world to Baltimore and particularly to Highlandtown. So that process continues. We'll have coming up here in a month or two, zoning board hearing to use the space for as an extension of our preschool requires. It's a conditional use, so it's allowed within R8, but only with a hearing and making sure that the neighbors are on board with it. And so we've been talking really extensively with the neighbors right there on Pratt and Clinton and Lombard. And we've had 2 different kind of community meetings just for kind of the immediate neighbors on that. And I've tried to keep HCA, both the board and membership, apprised. So our hope is that when we have a date for that zoning board hearing, that we'll have letters of support from the organizations and from individual neighbors. Of course, it's an expensive project. You're very welcome to donate to. You can do that on our website, breathofgodlc.org. But glad to have your support and your engagement with us on that.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks for the updates. Greatly appreciated. Thanks for all the good work you're doing. All right, so that concludes updates from the board of directors. And moving on to our agenda, just want to share a thought with y'all, share a thought with the room if I may. So preparing for this meeting, I was going through our website and doing various updates, and I realized oh my God, on the homepage of our website, there's all this useful information about COVID response and community engagement opportunities and helpful information. And then scroll down to the Twitter feed, which was also full of timely and relevant updates about living in Highlandtown and kind of dealing with the issues of the day. And it occurred to me that we've got so much great work going on within the HCA. We've got a really strong and incredible volunteer effort going on a bunch of different fronts. And I just wanted to recognize some of that work briefly, starting with John Eddy, who's done incredible things with our website and has really brought it into the 21st century and has like refined and cleaned and organized and optimized it. And I'm really proud of the work. And it's been so wonderful to see John's vision come to life as he makes iterative improvements. So if you haven't checked out the HCA's website, I invite you to do so, and not necessarily during the meeting, but whenever it's convenient to you. And if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share, I think we're all committed to making it better. But I just wanted to thank John for the great work he's done, and hopefully there's much more to come. But well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, really excellent. Similarly, Nick Frazone, member of our board, does all the social media stuff, like constant updates and like kind of just twittering his heart out, making sure that everyone knows like what's going on. And I really appreciate it. And it's so great, again, to see all that like contemporary useful information like pop up on the website. It just shows his ongoing commitment to our work, and I'm really grateful for it. Of course, Vanessa, Vice President, decided to reach out to BG&E and engage with them to fight for this $5,000 string light grant. You know, she pulled together all the forms and automated the application process and is working through like reconciling the financial aspect of that project and working with Mike Dorsey to get checks out to people. Like, it just shows the organization is functioning the way it's supposed to and really serving the community. And of course, like, you know, my wife Erin and Mike Dorsey have spent years trying to improve the garden and have really like fought like you know, persistently to reel in resources. They've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure the neighborhood has a nice community garden. And the work's not done, but just the ongoing commitment is outstanding and really humbling. And so I just want to thank you for bringing it and making Highlandtown a better place. So that being said, in the coming months, I'm going to invite you as the community and the members of the board to work with me to craft just a strategic plan for the HCA, because it occurs to me that many of the goals we set for ourselves, we have achieved, which is a great feeling to have, right? You know, we are compliant with our bylaws with respect to our financial reporting, and like posting. Our website, as indicated previously, is like just night and day better than it used to be, and is performing the functions we wanted it to. Like, the neighborhood has an incredible new infusion of external resources via speculative construction and the investment of new homeowners. Like, we're getting better all the time, and I think we owe it to ourselves and the community to challenge ourselves and develop a comprehensive vision. Or hell, I'd settle for an incomplete but aspirational vision to kind of march into the future and make the neighborhood better, both for us today and for our neighbors in the future. So yeah, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, if you want to get involved, if you've got a project that you want to breathe some life into, but you haven't had the chance to do it independently, and you want to leverage the resources of the community association and your neighbors to make it a reality, I encourage you to meditate on that and send an idea or some sort of communication about what you'd like to talk about to the Highlandtown at highlandtown21224@gmail.com, which is the HCA's email address. And I'd like to invite you to share those ideas with us. And then in an upcoming HCA meeting, we'll do some ideating around strategic planning and try and break out into like some work groups to develop those ideas further. So that's coming, but not tonight. But please think about it. And if you want to get involved, there's no time like the present. Moving on. In a previous meeting, we talked about wanting to facilitate sort of like democracy in action and make sure that everyone found it easy to communicate their questions, concerns, comments about life in the neighborhood to elected officials. And to that end, after a lot of back and forth, we are ready to perform an experiment. So if you go to the HCA website and you click on the resources tab, there is now a button. I think the button actually says email issue, but the thrust of it is that we believe that democracy is like an interactive thing and only works when used. So let's try to basically like at the lowest possible level of civic engagement. I want to make it really easy for you to like share your thoughts with your city council person and me. So like if you hit a pothole and get a flat tire and you don't know what else to do, like I want you to go to our website and think, you know, I want the city council and the HCA president and vice president to know that something should be done about this, because that's how things get done in the world, right? So if you think it is awesome that the streets are cleaner than they've ever been before, and something more realistic perhaps. But if you want to share your thoughts or concerns, I'd like to invite you to use this new tool that John has put together on the website. And if it works, we can expand on it, and it'll help, I think, be useful for, like, if you say, I think we need a stop sign at this intersection, and it goes to the city council people and myself and Vanessa, one of us is likely to help connect you to services or help, like, chart a path to making your desire a reality. If you send us crazy things, I'm going to tell you they're crazy, delete them. But let's try it and see if it works. And we also, I'll tell you, had a lot of internal conversation about whether or not to include, like, our delegates or what have you. And we decided that perhaps we'd test this on a hyper-local level and see how it works. So hopefully you guys use it and use it responsibly, and we can, like, maybe start a great thing here. All right. I'm going to ask if there are any questions about anything we talked about just now, and I want you to respond in the chat if the answer is yes, and we can hammer that out. And if the answer is no, my next step is to invite the folks from the mayor's office to introduce themselves, and we're going to do a brief Q&A. And then after that, I'm going to open up the floor so Amanda and anyone else who wants to do updates can. And then we're going to go to our invited guests. I think we're on schedule, and, like, we can be here as long as you guys want, but that's my battle plan. So first things first, I don't see anything in comments. Does anyone want to ask any questions or address anything that's already been covered in this meeting before we move on to the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services? Awesome. Okay, I don't see anything in chat. Don't worry, you're going to get a chance. What I'd like to do now is invite Jose and Jaleesa to introduce themselves and briefly tell the group what they do at the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. And then I'd just like to open up some back and forth Q&A if everyone's comfortable with that. So let's proceed. Jose, Jaleesa, you're on.
Lisa, you want to go first? All right, I'll go. So I'm Jose Perez. I am an outreach worker for the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. And what my job entails is going out into the street or wherever our unhoused neighbors are, meeting with them. We do put them into, we do try to get them into shelters when they're agreeable to it. But our job is a lot more than that. We do try to get them off the street, but we try to get them off the street permanently. So it's more of a long-term process. We engage people, we help them get their identification, we reconnect them with family when that's possible. We connect them to mental health resources, we connect them to drug treatment if that's what they need. And then we enroll them in housing programs, and we kind of walk them through it all the way to where they're housed. So it's a long-term process that we have with these individuals. So that's what I do. And Jaleesa is my teammate, and I'll let her speak to her job. She's the hub that makes it all work. So I'll let her speak to that.
Hi, my name's Jaleesa. I'm sorry I couldn't unmute. But my name's Jaleesa Glanton. I am on the outreach team for the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. I am the HMIS and coordinated access specialist for the team. So primarily my job is going over data review, making sure that we are targeting the population we're supposed to be targeting, looking at trends, trying to analyze where we are as far as outreach services, what areas we most appropriately need to serve. I also respond to the outreach emails. So any requests we get from constituents or community members, council members, city hall, I respond to those emails and assist the team in going out into the field to respond to any areas in need. Again, I help folks connect with coordinated access. I review the team's access packets to ensure that they are, getting the data appropriately and that we're not missing anything in terms of the housing packet. We work really good as a team. MOHS is not the only outreach team in the city. We have Downtown Partnership, of Baltimore, who is partnered with us, as well as People Who are Encouraging People. Our agency serves District 1, 10, 13, and 14. Downtown Partnership does 11 and 14, and PEP serves districts 2 through 9. So if you have any questions, you can reach me at jalisa.glanton@baltimorecity.gov, or you can email all of us at homelessoutreach@baltimorecity.gov.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. I would love to find out if anyone has any questions. Does anyone want to unmute and just engage with Jose and Jaleesa?
I just want to say thank you. I mean, it's a not only is it a completely unprecedented time, and that housing is at a huge place. It's a basic need. It's a right, and so I really appreciate the work that you're doing in attempting to really combat this problem, as opposed to what so many other approaches in the past have been to ignore it or brush it away, or just take it and chase it out of their neighborhood. So I appreciate it, and just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. We've actually done quite a bit of work in your neighborhood, and which is one of the reasons why we reached out to this particular meeting. We have spent a lot of time actually in Highlandtown, and we noticed that a lot of the work we do really goes unnoticed. You don't really see us around because we connect with the unhoused population. So when we go through Highlandtown, we see the people on the streets. We don't always engage as much with your neighbors, but we've been working hard to address some of the needs in your neighborhood for the past, I'd say, 5 or 6 months, Jaleesa?
Yeah. Yep. And we're out there. We do canvassing and visits on a daily or weekly basis based on need. I mean, if any community member gives us a call or sends us an email, we really respond within 24 to 48 hours to engage any areas that have homeless activity. We feel as though the community members are a part of, making homelessness rare and brief. So we want to, engage with you guys. We want to encourage you guys to call if you see any homeless activity, or if you see someone in need, or even if you see someone at risk for homelessness. We can connect them to services before, that situation gets worse.
I have a question. What do you do if someone refuses services?
Jaleesa, you want to get that?
Sure. So our approach, we use a housing first model, which basically means that we believe everyone has, the right to choose, self-determination. We want clients to first get housed, and we address all other needs second. When clients refuse services, we continue to engage. Our job is to build rapport with our clients. We don't want them to feel intimidated. We don't want them to feel overpowered. We're really there to support them. So if a client is refusing shelter services, we continue to go out. We continue to make those engagements with the hopes that we can build that rapport to help them with their housing need.
And then also, just to piggyback on what Jaleesa was saying, when people experience homelessness is an intersection of a lot of things. It's sometimes it's mental health, sometimes it's drug addiction. It can be a lot of different things. So if someone's refusing services, then we want to find out why. Like, what is it about it, like, that they're afraid of? Is it mental health issue? Is it drug? Is it whatever? And then we address those issues with the goal of getting them into housing. So there's been times, we might engage with somebody for many, many months before they'll even accept anything from us, or even give us their real name. But there's reasons behind that. So our job is we continue to go out and engage. So sometimes the results are not immediate. If someone calls and says, hey, there's a homeless person, on my street, just because we go out and speak to that person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a quick resolution. It means that's on the path to resolution. There's some individuals that have been in your neighborhood for quite a while, and they've been on the street for over 10 years, and they're being connected to housing right now. You know, a lot of the individuals that were in your neighborhood are being connected to housing. It's just quite a long process.
Just real quick, Jose. So in Delisa, so we had, I don't know, you probably guys know about the issue that we had at Eastern Avenue at Eaton. You guys are pretty much familiar with it. So one of
Hey,
the
Officer Rivera, introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Officer Rivera. I'm the Southeast District NCO from Baltimore City Police. So a lot of the complaints from these guys were that even though they were homeless, and you guys were trying to relocate them, but it was out of the area. So even though they're homeless, it's actually the Southeast was home for them. When you guys are gonna relocate someone, do you guys do it close to the area? Or because one of them was saying that he was going to be relocated to Westminster or somewhere like really far from here, and that's why he was actually not did not want it to be helped, did not want the services. So are you guys try to relocate him close to the area that they're in, or is there any any rules to that?
So when you say relocate, one thing that we want community members to know that we don't relocate individuals who are experiencing homelessness. What we do is we connect them with housing options that's available in Baltimore City. So when we connect with a client, we'll ask them if they're willing to take shelter. If they say yes, we call our coordinated access hotline, which is the Baltimore City's hotline for homeless services. We will see if we have a shelter bed that's available for that person. If they're willing to take the shelter bed, we will transport them to that shelter. If it's male, they have a few options for shelter beds. If it's female, they have a few options for shelter beds based on need. And then as far as our housing application goes, we can connect clients with anyone in our coordinated access database. So what coordinated access is a centralized application that connects one person to all housing programs that's available in that system. And the coordinated access team matches that person to the most appropriate provider based on their vulnerability, based on their needs, if they have mental health needs, if they have employment needs, if they have needs for substance use. So we don't necessarily relocate clients. We continue to engage to see what services are available to them. And if they are willing to accept those services, we'll take them to the services that we have to offer.
All right, I appreciate it. Can you guys share your information, please? Because we had a couple the other day, and the female was pregnant, and it was almost impossible for us to get somebody in contact with someone. It was kind of late at night. It was like maybe 10 o'clock at night. But if you guys can share a good number that we can call in case that we need you guys, it would be deeply appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put our contact information in the chat box.
Excellent. Great question, Officer Rivera. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jose.
Can I ask?
Angelisa.
No problem.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to ask a few questions or elaborate on that a little bit. Vanessa asked specifically, what about people who refuse services? And Officer Rivera alluded to the fact that people might be offered relocation services in places that they don't choose to be. I mean, even if they don't have a home in Highlandtown, if they feel that Highlandtown is their home, they're inclined to stay here. So it kind of, to try to come up with an off the cuff, slightly more nuanced question, Officer Rivera discussed the guys who were sitting on the street at Eaton and Eastern Avenue. And some people would say that they were homeless, and some people would say, well, they actually have a place to go, but they like to sit here and drink. And, the bottom line is nobody in the community is hating on people who are homeless. Everybody is sympathetic to the fact that somebody, through lifestyle choices or through just plain bad luck, has found themselves in a situation that they don't want to be in. The bigger problems from a community point of view, like a community that's trying to, clean up the neighborhood and put our best foot forward and that kind of thing. The bigger problems are related to the homelessness and the things that kind of spin out of it. And the big ones, of course, would be trash, sanitation in general for people who are, camped out in backyards and that kind of thing. And we've had fires in the neighborhood that can be attributed to people trying to get out of the cold and find a way to find some heat. And these are all basic, rights, and they should be, as everybody has alluded to. But it's a complicated issue, and what we would really like to see is a program that would offer the guys at Eaton Street an alternative to what they're doing, or incentivize them to clean up after themselves. And it's not their existence that we're upset by, it's the things that kind of spin out of it, and it's a big problem. So I don't even know if there's a question in there. It's really more of a comment and a concern, and just kind of be aware. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I appreciate it too, because it's something that we come across all the time as well. And a lot of it too is because we've got issues that are compounding the issue we already have. For instance, when I'm out on the street, I'm on the street 4 days a week. That's all I'm doing. And the amount of people I'm seeing that are COVID homeless is a new thing. They're homeless in the last few months because they had a job. These are people just like our neighbors, and they're on the street. You couple that with the lack of resources right now because COVID, so the day programs aren't there, the job resources aren't there. So the resources have been cut for COVID reasons, and then the population's increased. So those two things make it worse. And I'll give you an example of how we sometimes address some of those issues you're talking about. So there were some guys, I guess over the summer, that were hanging out in front of the laundromat on Highland Avenue, right downtown. They were hanging out in front of the laundromat, and then they would sleep at West Banco. That's where they were sleeping in the drive-through. So we kept getting calls about it, but they were actually really sleeping in the parking garage. There was about 7 or 8 people that were in the parking garage, and then they would relocate to West Banco or the laundromat when the parking garage would open. So we spent multiple months in that parking garage, engaging those individuals in each corner every day until we connected them to housing or something else. Now, in the meantime, we're making our trips through Harlantown on a daily basis. We see the guys at the laundromat or whatever. We'll stop and encourage them to clean up a little bit. Hey, you guys are getting towards housing. In the meantime, let's try to keep your footprint as small as possible. Let's not hang out in one spot too long. But the problem is, where do they go in the meantime? So we do stop and encourage them, especially while they're working on housing. We encourage them to keep their areas clean if that's all we can do. Sometimes they'll relocate to someplace else temporary, someplace that's kind of out of the way. And it's tough because they're stuck between a rock and a hard place as well. And we kind of serve in the middle, trying to get these individuals into housing, which is a long-term thing. Meanwhile, they're sleeping on the street, and trying to be sensitive to the needs of the neighborhood who are trying to go about their business. And the funny thing is one thing that you said is very true. Everybody we've spoken to, everybody I've dealt with in Highlandtown who is unhoused, has all said that they enjoy that neighborhood because they don't have the drama. They said that the people are super nice, and they have nothing but good things to say about you guys. So normally when we approach them, for the most part, they're the ones we've been talking to have been good about cleaning up. It's just a matter of getting to it all. But that's the answer I have. I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but so.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good answer, Jose. And I'd like to, I'm torn. I'd love to welcome some more substantive conversation about this, but we're also kind of on the clock and we've got some other invited speakers. So Jose, I urge you to share your contact information in the chat because a couple of folks have messaged asking for it. And I'd like to invite you to return to our next meeting in April, if you're interested, maybe to talk, present any updates you have, and we can plan to devote some more floor time to answer questions. How does that sound to you?
Sounds great.
All right, well, I'd love to see you back in the next meeting, and everyone, I hope you take advantage of the intervening time to think about what you want to talk about with Jose and Jaleesa when they come back in April. All right, so just housekeeping, it's 7:53. I suggested the meeting was on track to end around 8:15. We're running long, but having a great conversation. So I urge all of you to stick around for the speakers we've invited who will speak after we do updates from the floor. Thankfully, we're in a global pandemic and have no place else to go, right? So there's that. All right, so Amanda Smith-Peters, followed by Officer Rivera, and then we'll open the floor to other speakers. Guys, if we can keep it compact, I'd appreciate it just in the interest of the clock. But I'm gonna go mute, and Amanda, you're on.
I like how you just put me first. All right, so I'm Amanda Smith-Peters. I'm your Highland Town Main Street Manager. We're a program with the Southeast CDC, and I also work closely with the Arts District. Just two quick updates. One, you might have heard last meeting that we were going to have the Conkling Plaza survey to redesign Conkling Plaza at Conkling and Eastern. That survey is ready, and we'll be sending it to Nick, and he will get it out to everybody. So that's coming. And the second announcement I have is the art walks have resumed. The next art walk is April 2nd. We noticed that there was a little bit of trash. We know the wind in Highland Town just takes it everywhere. But there was a little bit of trash around last time. So we're actually going to do a little cleanup before starting at 3:30. So if you'd like to join us for the cleanup or just hit, part of your block, just grab a bag and throw some trash away. We'd appreciate it on Friday, April 2nd. That is the night of the April Art Walk. And obviously you can come to the Art Walk afterward as well. So we just want to make our neighborhood look its best in case we do have visitors from outside. And everybody's been doing a great job during the Art Walks to be COVID safe, wearing masks, keeping your distance, and being respectful of each business's different requirements and needs for visiting. So I just want to thank everybody, and please keep visiting us during the Art Walks. And that's all I have.
Outstanding. Thanks for that update, Amanda. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Hey, bonus question. Do you have any information you're willing and able to share about the progress of the demolition of the DJ Liquidators / Epstein's building that you would like to share with the group?
So the last I heard, myself and Nick Frazone are in touch with the contractors and with the developers, really. And so the last we heard is that they are slowly going to be working to take the building down from the inside out. And so you won't see this giant demolition. It's really going to be slow going. You probably won't notice much, but that'll take some time. And then they'll be back in touch with us when they're ready to start more work. Obviously, unlike some other projects, there isn't a big, event to celebrate the groundbreaking or anything of that nature because of COVID. So everybody's just taking it piece by piece, literally. If you have any issues, if there's a business owner that complains about what's going on, if there's a resident that has issues, I highly encourage you to reach out to the Highland Town, I think it's 21224, the HCA email address. And then we'll be in touch either between Nick or I, he'll ask me or I'll ask him. We'll all be in touch with how to get through. If anyone sees comments on Facebook, we just ask that you work with us and just encourage people, direct them back. Facebook's really hard for us to keep track of with all the different comments that happen. Not that we don't want to answer them there, but it's just, we end up answering the same question a lot. So we'll try to put out as many updates as we can, but we're trying to keep the conversation going in a positive direction and be supportive of the project.
Outstanding. Thanks again, Amanda. Well done.
Sure.
All right. Where are we going to go next? Officer Rivera, you're on.
All right, so I'm gonna give the floor to my partner real quick, and then I'll say something.
Hello, everybody. Officer Steve William, Neighborhood Service Collaboration. Just want to say, our job is to pretty much build the bridge between the community and the public. So pretty much every day, me and my partner, we go hit every high crime area, walk foot. We hand out flyers, and we handle every call and complaint that comes in concerning a neighborhood complaint. If you need anything, just put your name and number in the comment box. You want to say something?
All right, so there's a few things. Amanda was saying about the business owners. So we actually walk in on foot on Eastern Avenue. I walked about 6 blocks the other day, giving out the flyers for the commanders meeting, which I think it's a great thing that it's going to take place every month, where business owners, residents of any area in the Southeast can bring their concerns or any issues that they may have, and they will be addressed by the district commander. Also, we're going to be participating for this month. It's going to be the 24. We're going to be sending the 24 of this month at 7 o'clock. I believe you guys have the links because we sent it to Highlandtown Community Association. So this month is going to be the 24th. We're also working on a newsletter that's going to be distributed every month. What we're going to, this past month, I don't know if anybody got a hold of it on our website, but we introduced the shift commanders for the Southeast. We also have a page for the officer of the month or any outstanding arrests or any commendation that they achieved during that month. We also have crime prevention tips for robbery. We call it now the porch pirates, which is a larceny package of packages that is being increasing in the area. We have guys following the Amazon truck and the UPS. So that's one thing that I make them aware. Every time I'm on patrol, I tell the UPS guy or the FedEx or whatever, just to keep an eye because the trend now is that they follow them. We heard of a case that there's a guy in a vehicle following the truck. So when the package is dropped, if it's not picked up immediately on a few minutes, then they call the guy, and that guy who's on foot will steal the package. So we're making people aware that we have the drop boxes now with certain locations like 7-Eleven, Target, where you can actually pick your package, have it delivered to that safe location. We're also asking for the participation, and I know there's a large Latino community that own business around the Eastern Avenue corridor, but then in our meetings we don't have that participation. So I'm inviting people so they can participate in our next meeting, as well as business owners, like I said, from the corridor. We also have a few programs going on. We have the ROCA program, which is like an intervention model for youth. So if you guys know of anybody who's not doing well, is not on the right track, it's been difficult for that person to get a job, you guys can give us a call, refer it. I'll make the referral to the ROCA program, which is great, and it's helping a lot of the our youth. We also have another support services and job training that we can refer those individuals. We had a meeting the other day, about 2 weeks ago. We had a recruiting event. We called some recruiters from the armed forces that came to the district and talked to a few of our guys. So I think that was good. So anything, if you guys know of anybody who needs any assistance, or maybe talk to the police, just give us a call, and you as well. I know we were doing the meeting and walks before the pandemic, but everything hopefully is going to go back to normal again. So if you guys want to initiate those walks and any meetings, whatever you guys want us to participate, we're here for you guys. Okay, so don't hesitate. A lot of you guys got my phone number. I'm gonna put it in the chat box. So if you guys want to contact us, feel free to do so.
Awesome. Thanks for everything you do for us. We really appreciate it. Well
Any
done.
questions? Okay.
No. Any questions? It's totally okay.
I asked a question in the chat. Will these community police meetings stay on the fourth Wednesday of the month? They used to be on Mondays in person, and there's just actually the business association meets on that Wednesday. So if that's going to stand, I'm going to encourage them to pick a different night.
So the CRC meeting is going to be, because we have a new president for the CRC, which is Brian Fisher. So I spoke to him last week. We don't have the dates yet to be determined, but the commanders meeting is the fourth Wednesday of every month. Right. So I think that's going to stay that way. But the CRC, it used to be the first Monday of every month, but we're still waiting for that date to be determined.
Okay, thanks. I'll just let them know the updates. They can make a decision.
Okay. If it changes, I'll let you know.
Awesome. Thank you. Just as an aside, Branch runs a really tight meeting. So if you ever go to one of those, you're in for a treat. If you are into meetings and stuff. So moving on, anyone on the floor want to provide a brief and focused community update about something that's important to them? We're all ears. Let me know. No updates from the floor. What kind of meeting is this? All right, super briefly from the chat, Elizabeth says it's interesting that we just discussed the issue of homelessness in our community and that people experiencing homelessness have nowhere to go. Meanwhile, a new building with 140 market rate, parenthetical, market rate apartments is under development. Okay, well, I agree it's interesting. I feel like homeless people have a place to go because we have folks connecting them to resources. I know it's a big intractable problem and it's frustrating. I encourage you to bring that comment and the dialogue that follows it to our April meeting when we will invite the homeless services folks back. Otherwise, at the end of the meeting, I'll be glad to entertain some additional conversation about that. Any other interest and comments from the floor? All right, so we've got two sets of invited guests. Again, Molly and Eli are going to bring us up to speed on their project, and then please stay tuned for the Zero Waste Coalition. I know it's important that they share their message, and I'd appreciate providing them with an audience. So without further ado, Molly, you and Eli are on.
All right, I'm just going to let Eli take it. He's got all our slides. Go right ahead, Eli.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. I just threw my email and contact information in the chat. Nick, would it be possible for me to share? I see I've been made a co-host. Thank you very much. I've got just a couple of slides which I sort of reorganized when I realized kind of like just how many important updates there were this evening. So it's just the essentials, and I'll make sure that there's time for the last guest presenters. But I was, some folks may remember that I participated in the November meeting when we first sort of introduced Eli Poussin, a program coordinator with the Neighborhood Design Center, and working with Molly at the Southeast CDC on a new community plan for the Baltimore Highlands neighborhood at the sort of just immediately north of Highlandtown. And so, and the whole idea is that we're trying to create this plan, not sort of off on our own just for the Southeast CDC, but it's sort of something that we're making together with neighbors. And this project is supported, so to jog folks' memory and for people who didn't hear it the first time, by the Enterprise Community Foundation. And they're especially interested in sort of the connections between the environments where kids grow up and where they learn, and sort of how that influences their life in the future. And so one of the things is that most of Highlandtown and all of Baltimore Highlands is actually the zoned school attendance zone for Highlandtown Elementary Middle number 237. And so the kinds of conditions that you all have been talking about this evening around sanitation and safety and housing are all sort of things that affect both adults and young people in the neighborhood in a bunch of different ways. And so the goal is to develop a plan that sort of like takes stock of where the neighborhood is at today and sort of develop some recommendations for neighbors. So very much hoping this can be a resource, Nick, for your goal of creating a new strategic plan for the Highlandtown Community Association, for the Southeast CDC and planning their programs, and for the city and city agencies is something that we're really hoping to do. So, and again, that this plan is oriented where housing is going to be a big element of it, but we're also talking about neighborhood improvement projects, recreation, trash and safety, and sort of commercial retail opportunities. So over the last couple months, we have, after the meeting in mid-November, Nick generously hosted a small group online meeting in December. Mike Dorsey hosted a small group online meeting in mid-January. We've also met as part of a small task force around green space access issues in Southeast Baltimore, met with city planning staff, and over the last several weeks have been tabling at Highlandtown 215 at their food distribution event in order to get the word out about this project and connect, especially with Spanish-speaking neighbors who we haven't been able to recruit as much for the online meetings that we've had so far. But in those online meetings, it really has been a very rich discussion using sort of mapping activities and exercises to get feedback on sort of issues and assets that people are seeing in the neighborhood. So very briefly, some of the assets that people have been talking about are like things like being able to go to the art walk, the sort of relatively affordable homes, sort of access to jobs and services, and the sort of convenient and varied shops and restaurants. But again, the issues are some of the same things that we've been talking about tonight, of speeding drivers and car crashes, and concern about litter and unsanitary conditions in streets and alleys, and safety concerns around street harassment, sex work, and drug sales are all some of the things that we've heard so far. So I initially had put together a bunch of maps and plots and all that, but I wanted to sort of cut to the chase and tell you what we're doing next and how you can get involved. So so next, Molly shared that we're having next Monday, I think I've got the date on there correct, March 22nd at 11:30 a.m. We're gonna be hosting a brief, just half-hour sort of lunchtime online discussion where we're gonna share the information that I'm not going to show you tonight, and is also a good opportunity to ask questions if time doesn't permit this evening. In hopefully around April, the final date TBD, we're going to be doing an outdoor event at the Conkling Street Garden where we'll have information available in both English and Spanish for people coming to the garden, people just walking by to continue getting the word out. And between March and May, we're going to be conducting phone interviews with both Spanish and English speaking neighbors. And if you're interested in bringing together a handful of your neighbors to talk about issues in Baltimore Highlands or sort of things that you want to see in the future of the neighborhood, then please message me or message Molly or email either one of us, and we'd love to figure out how to help make that happen. So very briefly, just to show you the kinds of things that we've been doing, one thing that we've been looking at is like noticing that parts of Highlandtown and Baltimore Highlands are farther, you got to walk a lot farther to get to a park in Baltimore Highlands and Highlandtown than you do for many other parts of the city. They're more proximately located to parks. And although Patterson Park is this great resource, it's out of reach for some residents who may not be able to walk that far. And so what can we do about that? Another thing that we've been talking to a lot of neighbors about is concern around crime. And so while you know, the numbers aren't everything there is to public safety, I thought it was notable to sort of point out that despite the rising concern that some neighbors have shared with us while tabling or canvassing, the reported robberies and violent crimes in both Baltimore Highlands and Highlandtown have been falling basically continuously since 2017, sort of running counter to the trends in some other neighborhoods. And that the number of students at Highlandtown 237 has grown tremendously over the last 10 years. And of course, they're getting a new building is in the planning and design stages right now. So all just kind of a taste of, if you're able to join us next Monday. I'll put that slide back up again. Next Monday, March 22nd at 11:30. My email and phone number is in the chat, but those are some of the kinds of things that we're trying to learn about through talking to neighbors and pulling some data and doing some mapping, and then are going to be back in the later spring with like, here's some recommendations of, here are the great ideas that your neighbors shared with us. We wrote them down, and we want to figure out a plan to help you sort of work towards these goals over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And so here's how we can put that forward. So yeah, I'll stop there. And any questions or anything before we move on to the next guest?
Oh my God, Eli, that was the best presentation ever. Really well,
I appreciate it,
well
especially
done.
because I had to leave 3/4. I probably just kept the best stuff in, and it would have been much more bloated if I had shared the remaining 3/4 that I went to the cutting room floor over the last 20 minutes.
Although I do love a bloated presentation, I've got to say, I think you presented it pretty compactly, and I'm impressed. I'd also like to invite you to see at the end of the meeting if anyone is interested in asking you any questions or following up in greater detail. Maybe they want to dig into that bloat. But in the interim, well done.
That sounds good. I'll stick around past the wrap up so that anyone who has any questions can talk to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Molly. Molly, any closing thoughts before we move on to Tasia and Stephanie?
No, go right ahead. Thanks.
Awesome. Great job, guys. All right, ladies, Zero Waste Coalition, you are on. Thank you for your patience, and let's hear what you have to say.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having time for us to present to you all. I won't be long. I'll be really fast. I'll be really fast, so I won't put up any slides or anything. I'll just give like a quick brief summary of who I am and who are SBCLT and what our goals are for Baltimore. So good evening, everyone. My name is Tasia Thompson. I am a 15-year-old freshman at Merville High School, and I'm actually in the Tri Hill community, but of course I'm currently with the SBCLT. In terms of the Zero Waste Coalition and what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish. Well, right now we live in a field waste system. We are forced to live in. What I mean by that is that we have companies that we're dealing with who have a profit motive and wants to pollute our air, land, and water. And our people in the communities are suffering a grave health consequence because of this. Our goal is to move away from this profit motive cycle and into a zero waste cycle. One of the things we have done is to work with community residents. For example, we work with people in the Curtis Bay area. We've built, I would say, like a community area for them to play, recycle, compost if they have trash. But sadly, that got burnt down. But we are cleaning that at this moment. But we also work with the community residents to create the Baltimore's first fair development plan for zero waste. This plan creates Baltimore's alternatives to handle our waste that will create a safer and cleaner Baltimore and protect our lives and our health. And now we are doing a way for us to have people go on to sign on to our coalition and help with the plan of the zero waste plan. Have people come on so we can have a better fight. Right now, Mayor Scott has created a transition team to also help with this, so he can help as well. So he's created, I think, 240 community members to help with the transition team, to tell him what he needs to do and how he can do it, and creating a new and safer Baltimore. At this moment, we are building affordable houses for families in need, for families of low income, where it's like a greenhouse, like a thermal mug. That's what we're creating for these families. And a spot where vacant lots were, but we have created it to, of course, one was a playground, which is now going to be built into houses for low income families. And then another lot next to it will be another playground. We will rebuild a playground, make sure it doesn't get burnt down this time. But that's the things that the South Baltimore Community Land Trust is up to. In the chat, I will give out a sign-in sheet, and that's all I have. I don't want to take long.
Good job, Tasia.
Very well done. Thanks for sharing all that information. Stephanie, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you. I'll keep it short. So I'm a volunteer with the South Baltimore Community Land Trust, and they developed this presentation to outreach and educate to people in the city to help understand what zero waste is and what our efforts are in getting zero waste, to emphasize clean, green jobs. So improving and getting more work in sanitation workers. So that way, if we're not sending trash to the incinerator, that's the big point, is to divert any waste that's being sent to the incinerator, so we can stop polluting our air, and more importantly, stop polluting the South Baltimore community's land air. That's where the concentration of these super dioxins that are being burned from the incinerator are affecting the people that live closest to it. But it's definitely an all of city of Baltimore problem that we all have to work towards stopping sending our stuff to incineration, getting those jobs into the recycling and composting industry, and getting individuals and communities into composting, which I thought everything that was being presented on tonight is so relevant to the work that we're doing. And I love the beautiful community garden that you got put up, and that'd be a great place for us to get more in community engagement and composting. That's one of the biggest things that we as individuals can do to stop sending stuff to incineration, is to really focus on our food waste. So would really like to talk more about how we can get everyone that lives in the city, if you're not doing backyard composting, where's the nearest community garden you can take it to? And I'll end with that.
Outstanding, thank you. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to address to Tasia or Stephanie? I do see that Tasia has put her sign-in sheet and other information in the chat for our reference, and I encourage you all to check that out. It is 8:20, so we're not significantly over our allotted time, and there's really no expiration time on this meeting. So that presentation concludes our agenda, and I'd like to open the floor for any additional discussion or questions for any of our the folks that are in the audience, and let's go from there and see what happens. Anyone? All right, I'm going to go ahead and make one more call for comments, questions, additional topics of conversation, and if nothing comes up, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting.
Nick, real quick.
Shoot.
Somebody else is going to say anything. I forgot about some tips. There has been an increase in larcenies from autos and stolen vehicles. Please do not leave your car running with the keys. I know now we got warmer months coming up, so it actually happens at the beginning of the year when it's really cold. Please don't do that. If they steal it, they steal your vehicle, then you're gonna have to pay another fine, because we're actually gonna come out and cite you, which is about $170. So be mindful of that. Another thing, don't leave anything inside of the car that can actually attract any attention. Any computers, from a small charger to coins in the console, please, nothing that can actually draw attention for these people to break into your vehicle. Just be mindful. Any boxes from Amazon, I mean, people leave all kinds of stuff in the vehicle. So, you know, it's a crime of opportunity. So when they walk, they look, looks attractive, boom, it happens. So please be mindful of that. That's all.
Awesome, thanks for that. And that's awesome advice. A couple of thoughts are showing up in the chat, which I want to address briefly. So Janine and Liz ask, any info on the green trail that is proposed to connect the parks and specifically the Highlandtown Highline section? And the answer is sort of. In either the Baltimore Business Journal or the Baltimore Brew earlier this week, there was an article indicating that Mayor Scott is in full support of this project and wants to see it achieved in his term. And the developer working on South Haven Street, I believe, has agreed in some capacity to build out like the section of trail that goes through, I think that's Mark Saperstein's property on Haven Street that connects, can't think of the name of it, but anyway, across the street from Harris Teeter, basically, and to the east of Five Guys, that corner section there. But the primary holdout on the project is Norfolk Southern Railroad, and I don't know what the status of their claim on that property is, but I can invite them to attend our April meeting. Otherwise, I'll come back with more information. Awesome. Let's see, Brian and Elizabeth are going back about the development and homelessness issue, which I'm going to table until our next meeting. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share in the chat or just come out with? Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. In closing, I'd like to thank all of our guest speakers, the board, and everyone else from the community who contributed to the success of tonight's meeting. Thanks for coming together. It's what makes us a community, and I look forward to seeing you in our next meeting. In the interim, if you would like to contact me with any questions or concerns, please send email to highlandtown21224@gmail.com, and I will do my best to address those concerns. Everyone, thanks again for joining. Have a great night.